Hello, Andy. We're back again for Epic Encounters 6. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Yeah, we're back again. It feels like only yesterday we spoke to each other about Epic Encounters 5. It keeps rolling around. It seems quicker and quicker, but I think that's just as you get older, time goes quicker. Maybe it's something to do with that.
Yeah, it seems like not that long ago we were talking about Epic Encounters 1, and now we're halfway to 10. And, since doing these shows, how have things kind of changed recently in the COVID world?
Well, I think it's very much the same old. It's becoming the new normal is becoming same old. I guess we're all. I mean, as a promotion, Revolution Pro Wrestling is consistently, and myself personally, consistently looking for solutions, looking to be able to move forward and do whatever we can to continue to present professional wrestling. But of course, the first and foremost thing we've got at the top of our minds is everyone's safety, not just obviously the wrestlers, the staff, the camera crew, etc., that work the shows, but obviously also looking towards a time when fans are allowed back into buildings. And obviously there's nothing more that we want than to be able to welcome fans back into buildings, because of course it's just a real element that's at the moment missing from our presentations. And one of the most unique aspects about professional wrestling is the crowd, obviously, and the intimate nature of independent professional wrestling is very reliant on the crowd. Obviously, I've talked time and time again about these empty arena shows, and the fact that it enables us to look at things from a different perspective. It's different. It's not the same, but it's still kind of cool, being up close and personal to the action, hearing the sound of the blows, and the letting the wrestling do the talking, and the wrestling really tells a story. Because many times, I was having a discussion with some of our contenders about it the other day. Many times, a crowd can dictate how a contest plays out. And really it's, and they can make or break a contest in many ways. But now it's down to the wrestlers. The wrestlers got no crutch of the crowds. It's just down to the wrestlers and their, and their performance on the night. So it's an interesting take on it. But we do want to get back to a crowd, and we're going to get there as soon as we can safely say we can get back there. I mean, realistically, we've looked at stuff, socially distanced events. Ideally, we wouldn't have social distancing when we come back, but we have to. We're investigating every single avenue we can. But what I can say is, from a safety standpoint, running these empty arena shows, the protocols are getting more stringent as we learn from best practice. It's not one of those things whereby, once you've done a few, all of a sudden, we get a bit lapse on what we're doing because we get into a comfort zone. It's a case of each and every show we produce, we are taking on board where could we tighten things up, where could we improve, etc. And we are very, very aware of, creating a COVID secure environment and continuing to not just rest on our laurels and say, right, we've got that down. You've been at the shows and you've seen how, for example, the testing's evolved, etc. And for me, it's a case of continuing to evolve and continuing to learn as this whole thing's moving so quickly. And I say it's moving so quickly. I mean, we're in December now, and who would have still be here? But stuff is evolving on a daily basis, and the new technologies are evolving on a daily basis, and we're trying our best to keep up with it and move with that. And it's, everything's looking encouraging for the future, but it's very hard to pinpoint a time when we can get back in front of crowds. I mean, legally we can get back in front of crowds now to any tier 1 or tier 2 area. We can get back in front of crowds now, 50% capacity, as long as social distancing is applied, etc. But it's not something we're looking at right now. Because we're looking at it, but it's not something we're acting on right now, because it's it's still the risks for myself when I look at it are still too high, and I want to do everything I can to ensure that everyone's as safe as possible. So especially with, I know obviously stuff's coming down, but where we're in this peak at the moment, there's a lot of COVID out there. And all we can ever do, and I sound like a broken record, all we can ever do, and I feel like, I'm sorry if I'm going on and on, because I feel like I spend my whole life, every day is consumed with COVID-19 stuff.
I know, yeah. You're like a part-time COVID researcher now, Andy.
I am. One day I'll write a book on it. But whatever precautions we put in, doesn't matter how careful you are, we're just adding layers of protection. It's not, there's no 100% safe way of doing this. No, there's no 100% safe way of doing anything, you know, in this world. But all we can do is add as many precautions as possible to keep as many people as safe as possible. And, you know, and that's obviously, when we get back to running shows in front of audiences, I'm sure it's still not going to be at a stage where everything's going to be 100% safe. Again, like I said, I want to reiterate, when I'm saying everything will be 100% safe, nothing in this world is 100% safe. Crossing the road isn't 100% safe, you know. But we take the precautions when we cross the road. We look, we listen, you know, where possible, we cross at a crossing, etc. And we'll be putting as many preventative measures in place as we possibly can to be responsible operators. And obviously, it's very hard to do it. I don't know. It's I see people talking all the time about stuff, and I think like, really, our duty is to do stuff as a professional way as we possibly can. And I'm very aware that professional wrestling is a niche. I'm very aware that professional wrestling, you know, takes up about that much of people's thinking space in the world. But for us, it's our life, it's our way of life, and it's our passion, and it's something, that sense of escapism is something that we all thrive on, and we all need, especially in these times. And for people to say that pro wrestling is not important and, you know, should put it to the back burner, etc., I don't subscribe to that way of thinking at all. I think it just has just as much of a right to exist as any other profession in this world. And I think that I make it my mission statement. I'm going to do everything I can to continue to produce it in as safe a way as humanly possible. And, you know, I'm not giving up on pro wrestling, and I want to keep continuing to produce the best wrestling cards we possibly can.
Well, you've been not only producing the best shows you can, but you've been putting them out there for free on Twitch and Facebook as well. How did that go for you for the last show?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a hard one, because we're very new to all these platforms. I mean, I wish we were not new to YouTube. We lost our YouTube channel at the start of lockdown. A clerical error meant that we lost that channel at the start of lockdown. So we're essentially starting the YouTube and Twitch channels from scratch. And Facebook, I don't know, like we've got this engagement problem with Facebook, because we're advertising everything and not paying to advertise. So we need to it's something we're looking at. Well, and I say we're looking at, we're not. Something we need to enhance, you know, moving forward. But yeah, like all the streams worked well. There was no hitches. So hopefully, and the Twitch stream in particular was a million times better than our first attempt at streaming on Twitch. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, that was a big win. And it's just a case of just trying to spread the word and let people know it's happening, completely free of charge. This next one's Sunday, December 6th, next Sunday, 7 p.m. UK time. I don't have a world clock in front of me, but you can work out from there the rest of the time it's streaming around the world. Of course, if you can't watch it live, it's going to be available to watch instantly straight away once it's finished on demand, where you can pick your matches, and you know, you can watch at your own leisure on rpwondemand.com, and that'll be streaming and digital download on rpwondemand.com. But really, the aim, I can't stress enough, the aim of you know, putting the shows out there for free is essentially just to help spread the words and to help entertain people. I know I'm very aware for a lot of people at times, and including ourselves, you know, and I don't want to be a sob story, but, you know, for a lot of people, times are hard right now, and people can't afford to pay. And, you know, so what we're doing is we're trying to give you a way to watch it for free. And if you like what we're doing and you want to say thank you, then please subscribe to the on-demand service. Please check out shoprevpro.com. You know, please check out our Patreon. You know, there's numerous ways you can say thank you. You can donate on Twitch, and like any financial money back is a massive bonus for us, and it helps us continue to exist. So really, at the moment, we just want to get eyeballs on the product. We want to help entertain people during this horrible, horrible time. And really, the reason why we took it away from from behind a paywall, which is what I kind of discussed before. So I want to encourage people to get back to talking about pro wrestling and talking about it and British wrestling in particular, and talking about it as it happens and getting a bit of buzz going about it again, and getting a bit of life back into it, because, you know, we've still got some of the best wrestlers in the world today, and they still deserve their work to be seen on a wider platform. And, you know, as far as Rev Pro goes, we don't want to stagnate. We don't want to be stuck in March pre-lockdown. You know, we want to keep moving forward, and we want to keep telling stories, and we want to keep our younger performers developing, and we want to keep letting people be professional wrestlers, because for them, just as much as great it is for the fans to be able to see pro wrestling, for the wrestlers who are taking part in these shows, it's very important for them as well to, you know, for many of them, for all their adult lives, they've identified as a professional wrestler, then all of a sudden, boom, it's gone. You know? So for them, it's very important as well to be able to continue to be professional wrestlers. And it might not be as regular as they would like, but it's better than nothing. You know, and that's something that we're really trying to, you know, do to help our wrestlers, help the fans, and help ourselves as well. Because, you know, for me, without these shows, I'd be aimless. I wouldn't, you know, I always used to joke, my year would be defined by where I was in the world would be defined by my monthly show at the London Cockpit. I'd use that as that's my signpost, the first Sunday of the month. Oh, the next one's Christmas. So, like, you know, we're one cockpit show away from Christmas now, is what I'm thinking. But now at least I've got, you know, every 3 weeks we've got these Epic Encounters shows, and it lets me know where we are in the world. It lets me make a calendar be relevant again, and, you know, and it gets us to continue to, you know, just keep going and try and be as close to normal as we can be.
Well, it's another great card, and I know you've announced a championship tournament, but before we get into all of that, let's have a look at some of the matches that will come before. We've got Michael Oku teaming up with Connor Mills again, taking on this time Kenneth Halfpenny and Shawn Jackson. Now, we saw a lot of Kenneth Halfpenny in the previous shows, but this is Shawn Jackson making his return. What if they got to prove now going up against Oku and Connor Mills?
Well, I would say they've got nothing to prove whatsoever, because they're in an advantageous position in the sense that they've really got nothing to lose in this encounter. They're not going into it as favourites. They're going into it as the underdogs. So for me, they don't have anything to prove. I know, based upon their ability, that they're gonna put on a show, but I know the pressure that Kenneth Halfpenny puts on himself. We've seen it firsthand, the pressure he puts on himself to perform. And I know for a fact that Shawn Jackson, after taking all this time off, is chomping at the bit to get back into action. He's been training super hard. I mean, he's someone whose life has been affected dramatically by lockdown, but he's remained committed to professional wrestling. And he's now gone from someone who was living literally a 20-minute ride to the training school where our contenders train, to now being 2.5 hours away. He's still coming down at least once a week to train. Such is his dedication to the sport of professional wrestling. And he is going to be frustrated at missing out on that opportunity to appear on these first 5 Epic Encounters shows, especially seeing, you know, Kenneth Halfpenny and Brendan White killing it, and seeing JJ Gale taking tremendous strides. And he's going to have a point to prove himself as well. You know, the only pressure that is there for them is a pressure they put on themselves. I know they're going to perform, but the pressure is 100% on their own shoulders. Is what they want to show the wrestling world, and they want to show the world they can hang with Michael Oku and Connor Mills. We've spoken about Michael Oku and Connor Mills time and time again. You know, I think if the last few months have taught us anything, is they're definitely on the same page.
Yeah.
Whether or not Michael Oku agrees with everything Connor Mills says and does, that's another question. But they're friends. They've reconciled. You know, I don't really think there's any question marks over that reconciliation anymore. They've proven to be, you know, together. They looked very impressive last time out in tag team competition, and they're going to be looking to build on that momentum, because of course there's that big question mark over the Rev Pro Tag Team Championships, which we're going to address in due course. But you know, they're going to want to be some of the first names in the hat for that opportunity to get championship gold.
And we have another big match with Giselle Shaw. She's putting the women's championship on the line again, this time against Bobby Tyler. Now, Bobby Tyler, she's been pretty impressive over the last couple of shows, but do you think this is the opportunity she needs to maybe move out of Zoe Lucas's shadow?
Well, yeah, I guess that's an interesting one, and I feel that, you know, that if you posed that to their faces,
I wouldn't.
well, I'm sure that they would probably tell you to, you know, mind your own business and stop trying to draw a wedge between the two of them. Those two are thick as thieves. And quite literally, they've got away with some robberies, none more so than when Bobby Tyler defeated Jamie Hayter a few shows ago, which kind of really earned her that opportunity at that championship match against Giselle Shaw. Would it create a wedge between the two of them? I don't know. Perhaps. I think Zoe Lucas sees herself as a bit of a star of the team, at the centre of attention. But at the same time, if the championship gold is going home with them too, then maybe Zoe Lucas will be happy. I genuinely don't know. You know, it's very hard to kind of get where she's at mentally, purely because she seems so focused on Aaliyah James, and I think to her detriment, because I think if she wasn't solely focused on Aaliyah James and she didn't let Aaliyah James consume every moment of every day, then I feel that Zoe Lucas would be a lot closer towards, you know, reclaiming that undisputed British Women's Championship. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like talking about solely Zoe Lucas and Bobby Tyler is perhaps doing a disservice to Giselle Shaw and the work that she has done as women's champion, because to me, you know, when she won that gold, even in her quest, her pursuit of that gold, she said her goal was clear. She just wanted to put the Revolution Pro Wrestling Women's Division on the map. And I think it'd be hard pressed to argue against that fact.
And we're also going to be hearing from Gideon Gray about the future of the Legion. What do you think Gideon could have up his sleeve for us?
Well, I don't know, but I'm going to ask you that question, Steph, because I understand you're going to be the person who's going to be talking to him. So what are you expecting? What are you going to ask him?
Well, the Legion has really been decimated recently. You know, he's lost Shaw Samuels and Mark Haskins, and I'm just wondering how he's going to go about rebuilding this faction that I really thought was going to dominate Rev Pro.
Well, I think he's got one or two tricks up his sleeve. Of course, we're still waiting to hear what's going on. I mean, you know, there's rumours are rife about Shaw Samuels, rumours about Rampage Brown. You know, Mark Haskins hasn't been entered into this tournament. He's still very much a part of the Revolution Pro Wrestling roster. I assume he's still very much a part of the Legion, but I know he's not been entered into this championship tournament. So there's going to be questions about him. You know, the Great Okan is obviously in Japan right now. So he's got a lot to answer. And of course, the Legion have the tag team championships. So we need to find out what's going on. And I've just got a feeling we're going to find out in Gideon's own time. So I'm not really sure if we're going to get answered, you know, to prepare you. Are we going to get answers on Sunday, or is that going to pose more questions? I think it's going to be interesting to say the least. I'd say in terms of the interview itself, rather you than me, because I don't like the guy.
Yeah. I've got some prepping I'm going to need to do for that. So moving on to the Southside Championship Tournament, you have been announcing the competitors all week. We have 8, and it's a double elimination tournament. So firstly, what is a double elimination tournament, Andy?
It's a tournament I'm regretting putting together because I'm going to have to explain it to everyone. I think it's a tournament that creates a lot of exciting, intriguing and interesting scenarios. So essentially it's fought under 2 blocks. There's Block A and Block B. The B block doesn't start until the first round of block A is finished, because what happens is you've got your bracket at the top, which runs like a traditional tournament. The winner gets through to the final. And then every single time someone loses in block A, they move down to block B, which in effect creates another mini tournament. And the winner of block B will get through to the final. So you have to lose 2 times in order to be eliminated from the tournament. In regards to the final itself, we're going to do the final itself is going to be a 30-minute iron fist match. The person who qualifies via block A will get a 1-0 head start in that match. And obviously the person who goes through block B, having gone through the tougher route, but having already been defeated once in the tournament, they will go in with a 1-0 handicap essentially, and have to fight from underneath to try and get back. And they'll have 30 minutes to do it. But in an iron fist environment, the match is able to end instantly via a knockout. So that's the way essentially it works. I hope that's explained the tournament. But essentially, you have to lose twice to lose. Once you lose from block A, you move down into block B. So does that explain it?
Yeah. Well, I get it at least.
Well, fingers crossed the rest of the wrestling world does. But obviously, we're going to keep you up to date every step of the way of a tournament, with brackets and, and we'll be explaining it every step of the way. But to me, it creates some intriguing scenarios, because it can lead to people facing each other twice in a tournament. It can, obviously the same way any tournament does, it can throw up real intriguing and interesting combinations of matches along the way. Those matches where people face each other twice, do people change up their tactics the second time round, or do they stick to the same game plan? And then there's obviously the person the people who move down into block B, their route to the finals is a lot tougher than the route to get to the finals in block A. So, there's a story there in and of itself. And then you've got questions about, the people who've worked, the person who's qualified via block B, they're going to have wrestled more matches than the person who's in block A. But it depends at what point. There's no real strong and fast way of telling, because there's so many different ways this tournament can shake out. Because, for example, you get all the way to the semi-finals of block A, and lose there, move down into block B, and then you only got to win 1 match to get into the finals. But if you lose in the first round, you've got a lot further to go. So, there's so many different scenarios, the way this thing could shake out, and so many different intriguing matches based upon the 8 participants we've announced. So I think it's something which is a little bit different. That's something that we've always tried to do in RevPro, something that's a little bit different, but not so out there that it's just like, why on earth are they doing that? Our goal first and foremost is for the focus to be on the pro wrestling, and I think the intriguing situations that this tournament creates means that it's definitely a good decision to do a tournament like this rather than your standard, your bog standard elimination tournament. Whoever gets to the finals is going to have earned it. Whoever wins the championship is going to have earned it. And, we'll hopefully create some interesting matchups, some exciting matchups along the way, which people are going to be talking about for a long while to come. And hopefully doing our bit to help, really raise back up the prestige of that Southside Heavyweight Championship. I think it's so important for us not to just, again, people ask the question, why are you doing this? And for me, it's so important. When we took over Southside, I always said that we would respect and honor the legacy of Southside Wrestling, be it by putting their video archive up on rpwondemand.com, by bringing the awards in as part of RevPro management, by looking at bringing in some of their most exciting roster members, by ensuring the Southside fans still get great wrestling action in the areas that they live. And a big part of that is respecting the lineage of the championships. And to me, to end the Southside Championship on a sour note, and just vacate it and have it disappear off into the atmosphere, in the cloud of smoke, I don't think that's the way it should be. It should be retired. And I feel that, it's a great opportunity. These men are fighting for something with prestige, and to add their name onto a great list of champions. And, at the end of it, at some point down the line, we're going to unify that Southside Championship with the Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship the same way that we'd always intended to do. And we're going to make it a match to remember whenever we get the opportunity to do that.
Well, before we get into the first round matches, just looking at the competitors that have been announced, you've got your Ricky Knight Juniors, you've got your Dan Moloney's, guys that we've seen so much from in the past couple of shows, but then you've also got people like Charlie Sterling and Screwface that we haven't seen in Rev Pro recently. So how did you pick the 8 competitors for the tournament?
Well, for me, it was important to get a great mix of professional wrestlers. And I've always said that that's something that we've always wanted to do in Rev Pro. I was very determined to make it a heavyweight tournament. I know we have a lot of cruiserweights like to, mix it up in terms of weight divisions. But I think that every single person in this tournament, I think can't be argued they are a heavyweight and not a cruiserweight at this stage. So that was kind of important for me, but really the same way I always do. I watch a lot of videotape, I canvass for opinion, not just the opinion of fans, but also I canvass the opinion of the professional wrestlers. And that's how, that's how we got to where we did. I mean, guys like, obviously it was great seeing Joel Redman. I'm sure anyone who's seen Joel Redman's previous 2 contests, against Dan Moloney and Mark Haskins, will tell you what a great return to Revolution Pro Wrestling Joel Redman's been. Charlie Sterling, of course, Joel Redman's tag team partner, a former tag team champion alongside Joel Redman, but someone who, if you ask the wrestlers, they will tell you Charlie Sterling is probably the best pound for pound wrestler playing their trade on the UK circuit right now. And that's when you ask workers, real wrestlers, who do this job for a living, and have been doing this job for many, many years, guys like a James Mason or a Dean Allmark, those are the guys that tell you that, Charlie Sterling is a very real deal. And he was great before, but he's evolved his game so much since then. And to me, he's a great addition. I think a man in a similar ilk to that is Screwface Ahmed. Again, another wrestler's wrestler. But Screwface is someone who's never been in Revolution Pro Wrestling before. And I think he's an exciting proposition to the roster. Stylistically, he's very different to anything we have in Revolution Pro Wrestling. He says he's diligent in all disciplines of combat. And I think that he's going to be a great find, a great get in terms of giving him an opportunity, a platform to perform. These guys, they come in with reputations, but reputations count for nothing. All we can do is give an opportunity and see what people make of those opportunities. And I guess I don't want to, miss out someone like a Chuck Mambo, for example, who's, he's just before lockdown. It's so frustrating because Chuck Mambo was, of course, alongside TK Cooper, starting to feature regularly as a team in Revolution Pro Wrestling prior to lockdown. And there were big plans for Chuck Mambo and TK Cooper in the tag team division. And then obviously this whole lockdown happened. TK had to go back to New Zealand, and Chuck was left on his own. And Chuck's someone who, again, he's deceptively big, Chuck Mambo. I don't think you realise how big he is until you see him in person. But he's also done a good job of adding some size onto those bones, a bit of muscle onto those bones in the last few months or so. And I think that he always brings a unique energy to shows, and I'm excited to see him do that. So it's the whole field, and that's before we talk about the guys, the Ricky Knight Juniors, the Dan Moloney's, that's before we even talk about those guys. Rob Elias coming back from behind the commentary desk, Brendan White obviously looking to continue the momentum from that best of 5 series. It's a great field. It's interesting, it's exciting, and it's something that I didn't want it to be the same old names, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a more diverse field in the UK in terms of heavyweights. So a lot of homework was done to get to this field, and we've done everything we can to put it together, and hopefully it can stay together, and we can have this full tournament, and it can be exciting.
So the first match, we have Joel Redman versus Screwface. So Joe, as you said, we did see make his return to Rev Pro during the first set of Epic Encounters shows, but Screwface is someone completely new. What do you expect to happen in this match? Because Screwface, he might be unlike anyone Joel Redman's ever faced in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they're two wrestlers, you know, in terms of they both know how to do the job. They're both so solid. They're both so well-rounded as professional wrestlers. Screwface, an unorthodox striker. Joel Redman, very much a technician. So the way this contest goes, it could well come down to if Joel Redman can get Screwface down onto the canvas, or if Screwface can keep the contest standing. I know Joel Redman fancies himself, you know, on his feet the same way that Screwface fancies himself on the mat. But I think, you know, the disciplines that they excel in, it's very clearly that Screwface is standing and Joel Redman's mat base. So it's an interesting and intriguing styles clash. You know, you make a good point about Joel's, you know, Joel's been back. We've seen him back, and now we're just that little bit further on. He's got a couple of matches under his belt. You know, he's done a little. You know, he's done a little circuit around the UK, you know, and he's not coming into this one cold, Joel Redman. You know, what I guess I'm saying is ring rust isn't going to be a problem for him, you know, because he was coming into the last set cold. And again, this is something that we saw as the shows progressed, as the shows developed. You know, we saw, for example, Michael Oku get sharper with each and every match. You know, every wrestler, I use Michael Oku as an example, you know, every wrestler got sharper. Will Ospreay, we saw him get better as the shows progressed, right? And, you know, RKJ got better as the shows progressed, you know, and Will and RKJ are probably two guys that, you know, missed less of a step than the others, but they're just unhuman in terms of their level of ability. But I guess what I'm saying is, you know, professional wrestling is like many other disciplines. The more you do it, the better you get at it. And if you have, you know, they say you don't become a great wrestler until you've had hundreds, perhaps thousands of matches. And people will look back on their careers who you think were in their prime, maybe, I don't know, 2 years ago. And right now they'll say, I wasn't even close to my prime 2 years ago. Because the more they do it, the better they get at it. And whilst you retain some form of muscle memory from doing this, like riding a bike, and some people will say, oh, ring rust isn't real, you know, no form of exercise can prepare you for being inside a wrestling ring. And there's nothing like on-the-job experience, which is why we always say you need to get your reps in, you know, which is why the contenders division is so important, you know. And this is why competing against the best is so important, because unless you push yourself, you don't take yourself to another level, right? And there's many people who you say, there's these great wrestlers plying their trade around the UK who we've not heard of yet. But that's because they've not been able to test themselves against the best. And it's when they test themselves against the best, yeah, they might have potential right now, but it's not until they test themselves against the best you see if they're going to sink or swim. And Joel really, you know, he's got those reps back in. You know, ring rust isn't going to be a factor for Joel. Will it be a factor for Screwface? Because he's obviously, there's the intimidation factor. He's, you know, he's going to say he's not going to be intimidated, but, you know, it's a case of this is his one time to make a first impression. And he knows if he makes a good first impression, it's going to mean so much for him. And I guess in the tournament environment, in the double elimination tournament, every single match here, all the wrestlers have this opportunity to come out swinging. They have an opportunity to come out swinging because they know that if they miss up, if they slip on a banana peel, if they lose, there's still a second chance. There's still another route to redemption. It might be harder. There's still another route to redemption. So whilst it's a chance for Screwface to make a first impression, he will get a chance, regardless of the outcome of this match, he'll get a chance to make a second first impression. So perhaps having that level of comfort will help him get back into it straight away. But like I say, there's no substitute for on-the-job experience and being able to practice your trade on a regular basis. And he's not had a chance to do that. This is going to be his first match back since March. So a lot of time's passed since March. A lot of things have happened since March. You know, he has the advantage that obviously gyms were open for a lot longer going into this match than they were going into our first set. Gyms, you know, the first shows, gyms have been open for what, 2 weeks?
Yeah.
So, you know, now he's got that advantage. He's had a few months of gyms being open, a summer of freedom to get himself in ring shape. And we're going to see if he's there yet. But you know, you couldn't ask for a harder first match in than Joel Redman. I think to me, it's one of those matches which, you know, it's not something that's going to get maybe your fans, you know, your cool wrestling fans excited about it. It's going to get the wrestlers excited. You know? And I think that people are going to watch that match and they're going to learn a lot about Screwface Ahmed. They're going to learn a lot about Joel Redman. I think it's going to be a great match.
Well, our next match, again, it's two people that we haven't seen in Rev Pro for a while, Charlie Sterling, Chuck Mambo. You said earlier about how you feel like Charlie Sterling's pound for pound maybe the best wrestler that we have, and he's going up against Chuck Mambo, and I'm wondering what you think Charlie's mindset might be, if he's maybe, in a way, not overlooking, but might be too confident going into this against Chuck Mambo, a guy that, as you said, had been focusing on tag team wrestling for a while and had that taken away from him?
I don't think overconfidence is going to be an issue for Charlie Sterling. I think that he's had his mind set on a comeback to Rev Pro for a long while now. I feel like he feels hard done by that him and Joel never received their rematch at, you know, at those tag team championships. There's been a couple of times when they were going to be brought back in, but circumstances just meant that never happened. And I feel that Charlie Sterling wants to make up for lost time, and he wants to stop being called the best kept secret, you know, or the best wrestler you've never heard of. And I think he's going to see this as a real opportunity to make his mark. And I just don't think that he's going to be one to, you know, lay back and, you know, let this opportunity pass him by. I feel that if he overlooks Chuck Mambo, he could be in trouble, but I don't think he's going to. I think it's an interesting contest. Like I said earlier, Chuck Mambo brings a unique energy into each and every match. Yes, he's been focused on the tag team division, but Chuck Mambo is one of these guys who I think is criminally underrated in terms of what he can do inside a professional wrestling ring. And a lot of it may be because of his demeanor. He looks like he's always having a laugh. He looks like he's always having fun. And I'm going to say there's nothing wrong with enjoying your job. There's nothing wrong with enjoying what you do. You know, you're not going to crucify a guy for having a good time when he's in the ring. But I think that because of that, it may give people the impression that he doesn't take it seriously. It may give people the impression that he shouldn't be taken seriously. But, you know, we've had people like our former undisputed British heavyweight champion, Colt Cabana. He's shown you that funny can equal money, you know?
Yeah.
And I think Chuck Mambo is one of those guys. He can go in the ring. And I think that it's going to be, again, just another interesting match. As far as I'm aware, it's a first-time clash between the pair. You know, it's one of those contests that I'm excited, as a wrestling purist, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see what both men bring to the table. And again, I think Chuck Mambo may feel like he's got just as much to prove as Charlie Sterling, for reasons that, you know, I mentioned, in terms of people perhaps not taking him as seriously as he feels they should. That doesn't mean he's not going to have a good time, but I feel like he knows he's got a point to prove as well. And it's a chance to do it with a spotlight solely on him. Predominantly in Rev Pro, he's been a tag team wrestler. We've seen him alongside Cassius. We've seen him alongside TK Cooper. But now it's a chance for him to do this on his own.
Well, we talked a bit about people having ring rust, and one person who definitely would not have ring rust is Brendan White, who we've seen have that epic series with Kenneth Halfpenny, but now he's in the tournament, and his first match is against Rob Elias, who could be someone that's suffering from ring rust, but then again, Rob Elias has had the best seat in the house for the past Epic Encounters show, calling them alongside you. So do you think Rob Elias has been taking notes and worked out a game plan after watching Brendan White so many times?
So one thing I'll say about Rob Elias is when he was doing commentary alongside me, he had a notebook and he was scribbling down stuff about every single match. He'd scribble stuff down. It wasn't a notebook where he had facts that he could look at and say, oh, well, you know,
yeah,
James has wrestled 25 matches. This is only a 26th match. You know, it wasn't a notebook with facts in. It was a notebook where he would scribble down stuff about the wrestlers, about what they do, essentially scouting the opposition as he went. So I know for a fact that he's been doing his homework. And a bit of a betting insider line for you here. Rob's obviously someone who trains at the Portsmouth School of Wrestling, and he's been training very hard for this moment. So the whole time, even while we were commentating, you know, from the second that we were allowed to reopen the doors of the Portsmouth School of Wrestling, Rob Elias was the first one there. You know, he had the same drive that he had when he first stepped foot inside our wrestling gym. And he is someone who picked it up very, very quickly because he was there 3 times a week, rain or shine, first one there, last one out, hard worker. And it seems that the time away from professional wrestling has reinvigorated his love of professional wrestling. I think perhaps pre-lockdown, you could accuse him of maybe getting a bit complacent. You'll just need to take one look at his body and where it is at the moment to see that a transformation is not just taken place, it's very much underway and in full effect right now. And that drive that he has is still there. I don't really want to sit here and say too many nice things about him because he said a lot of horrible things about me, but I guess I just want to emphasize the hard work that he's been putting in. And even though he may not have been competing during those epic encounters, he worked hard to get himself back in the hunt, back in a position. He earned his spot in this tournament. And I think that's important to remember. He earned his spot by working hard, by working very, very hard. And you could see, you know, just when we were doing commentary, the effort he was putting in, you know, writing down notes. Every single wrestler, every single match, laundry list of notes. And I think that's going to hold him in good stead. And like you say, he's working against someone who has had a lot of ring time. So is that going to be to his detriment, considering Rob's seen him wrestle 5 times in the last 3 months? And best seat in the house, analysed it up close and personal. But he's going up against another hard worker. Not many people are going to be able to outwork Brendan White. And I think that's where Brendan White and Kenneth Halfpenny had so many issues, because they both pride themselves on being the hardest worker in the room. And I know that Brendan White isn't going to take this opportunity lightly. I think if you were to accuse him of anything in his matches with Kenneth Halfpenny, it would be a sense of naivety. And I think that sense of naivety meant that that series with Kenneth Halfpenny went on longer than it needed to, because Brendan White fell for a lot of tricks that Kenneth Halfpenny threw his way, which perhaps he wouldn't fall for now. But again, that's all a part of the development of professional wrestlers. And I spoke about it in great detail last time we spoke with one another, so check it out on, you know, if you want to hear my full analysis of it. But really for contenders, that's what these matches are all about. It's about experience. It's about learning from each and every outing, learning from your mistakes, learning what you do well, and correcting those mistakes in your next contest. And any contender is going to tell you, after their last match, they're going to want to get back in the ring straight away. You know, they don't want to wait until the next show. They want to be back in there straight away, and they want to be training and working and correcting their mistakes and putting wrongs to right, essentially. And I think that's what Brendan White's going to approach his tournament with, that kind of mindset and that kind of focus. And don't forget, Rob Elias knows where Brendan White is right now, because Rob Elias was a graduate of the first series of the contenders division. So he knows exactly the thoughts that are going through Brendan White's mind right now. So if there's anyone who's not going to take a contender for granted, it's going to be our first set of contenders, Rob Elias, Dan McGee and Mad Kurt. But, you know, the less said about him, the better.
And for a final first round match, we have RKJ taking on Dan Moloney. This looks to be about even more than just the championship tournament after the events of the last Epic Encounters.
Yeah, I think, to me, it's a pick and match of the first round in more ways than one. It's a match that I think most people are going to want to see, because it's such an intriguing contest between two of the real, I don't want to call them franchise players, but I guess that's what they are right now. The real franchise players of Rev Pro, the real flag bearers of Rev Pro right now, the key top guys. And it's almost impossible to pick who's going to win. But despite the fact he came up short in that contest against Will Ospreay, he put in one hell of a showing. And he learned a lot of lessons from that match. I'm sure. I'm sure we're not going to see him, you know, walk into his opponent with his hands behind his back, walk into a dangerous striker like Will Ospreay. I'm sure we're going to see him respect his opponents a lot more moving forward. I think that if you're going to pinpoint one moment in a match where stuff went downhill fast for RKJ, it was right then, you know, in that match with Will Ospreay, you know, where he literally disrespected Will Ospreay's striking ability, put his hands behind his back and wanted to prove his toughness, you know. There's a time and a place for that sort of thing. And trust me when I say a high stakes environment like a main event with the undisputed British Heavyweight Championship on the line is not the place to do that. And I'm sure, you know, he would have analysed that. I'm sure he'd be kicking himself. I'm sure his dad would have given him a clip round the ear for, you know, being not just naive, but almost arrogant, you know, in that sense. And that's something we've seen from Ricky Knight Jr. There's potential there for Ricky Knight Jr., you know, to be a little bit arrogant and be a little bit overconfident. And I think that that's just a sign of immaturity. He's 20 years old, you know, and that's just what happens as you're young. And sometimes you need it to be knocked out of you. And I think that if anything's going to knock it out of you is that barrage of offense that Will Ospreay gave him in that heavyweight championship match. Now, obviously, to me, it's one of those matches whereby we thought everyone would be talking about Ricky Knight Jr. at the end of the match, because it was one of those nights that careers are kind of defined on, not in the way you would have hoped in, you know, his crowning moment of winning that undisputed British Heavyweight Championship, but the night that he proved he could hang at a world-class level, the night that he proved that all the hype is real, the night that he proved that he is a main event player and he's up there with the best wrestlers, not just in the UK, not just Europe, but in the entire wrestling world. You know, he went toe-to-toe with the best wrestler in the world, and he came that close to winning. And if he made a few adjustments, I feel that going into a rematch, he would stand a very good chance of winning. And I think that, you know, he was really expecting people to be talking about him. But what Dan Moloney did in attacking Will Ospreay at the end of that contest, not just make a statement towards Will Ospreay, but he pulled all that glory away from beneath Ricky Knight Jr.'s feet. You know, Ricky Knight Jr. left everything, every last ounce of energy, every last ounce of soul. Ricky Knight Jr. left in that ring, and Dan Moloney just swept it up when he drilled Will Ospreay and left himself making the headlines, had everyone talking about him. And, you know, and I think because of that, Ricky Knight Jr. is not a happy man. And he's going to be going into this contest hell-bent on gaining Dan Moloney's respect, on getting Dan Moloney's attention, and getting the attention of the wrestling world. This match, honestly, is so exciting to me. And like, you've got almost a battle of people going in different directions, and they're both on their way, their upward trajectory.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say now, Ricky Knight Jr. is coming off a heartbreaking loss. He's going to have to rebound and recover. The same way Dan Moloney, last time out, had to rebound and recover against Shawn Samuels. Now, I'm sure for Dan Moloney, he went into that match with Shawn Samuels with way more pressure than RKJ is going to be putting on his shoulders because of the fact he lost to Mad Kurt. You know, if it was anyone else, I think Dan Moloney could have handled it a lot better. But can you imagine what was going through his mind? Go through that whole time being undefeated in singles competition in Rev Pro, and you get stopped by Mad Kurt. The unstoppable force gets stopped by Mad Kurt. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, Dan Moloney, it was a huge mental game, huge mental warfare, coming back and defeating and beating Shawn Samuels, the East End Butcher. And I think that was a huge moment for Dan Moloney. And this is RKJ's moment now to pick himself back up after a huge loss. So that's very interesting and very intriguing. Dan Moloney's going to be knowing what's going through RKJ's head right now. But then you've got Dan Moloney, who was a lot leaner in recent weeks. And we've seen him rip up, you know, shred up. We've seen him on, you know, his Instagram, you know, he's shredding up. You know, he got lean, now he's shredding. So I think that's going to help Dan Moloney in terms of his speed, in terms of being able to keep up with RKJ, you know, which wasn't a part of his game before. The question is he going to be able to do that and maintain his power? Then we've got Ricky Knight Jr., who's been adding size onto his frame. A great deal of size as he makes a step up from cruiserweight to heavyweight. And he's been doing that. It's been a gradual process, and he's been doing that. But now there's a question of how much size can he add before it starts affecting his speed. So you see the two men's strengths are kind of meeting in the middle here, because we had Dan Moloney's strength was his best attribute and he's working on his speed. Ricky Knight Jr.'s speed was his best attribute and now he's working on his strength. So it's such an intriguing contest between two developing and evolving professional wrestlers. And that's exactly what they are. They're developing and evolving each and every day. They're getting better. Each and every day they're getting stronger. And I think they're on a collision course for one another. It was inevitable at some point, I believe, going back to Epic Encounters 1, even before lockdown, is for me been inevitable that there's going to be an encounter between Ricky Knight Jr. and Dan Moloney. I think if both men had their way, they wouldn't be meeting in the first round. But hey, it's a luck of a draw. It's the way this thing's been shook out, you know. And I think they both want to fight each other, but I think they'd rather fight each other a little later on in the tournament. But you know, it's first round, main event, and high pressure, high stakes environment. And I think we're going to see the best out of both men.
Well, it's another really exciting card, but there's also so much to be excited about when you think about this new direction that RevPro's going in, and everything that the future of this tournament can bring up over the next couple of weeks. And so why don't you let everyone know again how we can check out Epic Encounters 6?
Absolutely. So you can watch Epic Encounters 6 100% completely free of charge. Absolutely no catch whatsoever. And it's available on Sunday, December 6th, 7 p.m. UK time. And it's streaming on Twitch, which hopefully the link will appear now, twitch.tv/RevPro UK, YouTube, which hopefully the link's appearing now, and you might even be watching this on YouTube right now. YouTube, and but I've not got a good URL for our YouTube yet, because obviously where we're starting from scratch, we're not able to choose our URL yet, but we're a few subscribers away for doing it, so perhaps you can subscribe to our YouTube now and give us that helping hand to push us over the line. I think we need something like maybe 20 more subscribers to get there. So, so please keep liking and subscribing to these services that we are offering these Epic Encounter shows for free, because again, there's no catch. It's not going to cost you anything to like, subscribe, etc. Apart from the fact you'll be notified when stuff's happening. But the more likes and subscribers we have, the more that we can do, and therefore the more we can provide you for free. So, so please help us with the engagement on these platforms. And of course, Facebook, facebook.com/Revolution Pro Wrestling. There's no one platform or the other that we're telling people to go to, whatever suits you best. So we've got Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, your free platforms, which are going to be streaming the shows live from 7 p.m. And then as soon as the show finishes, I want to make everyone perfectly aware the streams of those shows, or the VOD of those shows, are not going to stay up on the platforms. Okay, they're going to go, the archive is going to go straight to rpwondemand.com, where if you're not a subscriber, there's a 2-week free trial going on right now. There's RPW On Demand is obviously the backbone of our company, and if you can afford to, please subscribe, support, tell us you like what you're doing, like what we're doing, you know. You've got the full archive of all our shows, plus shows from wrestling promotions around the world. And of course, the full archive of Southside Wrestling is being added on a weekly basis. So many great professional wrestling shows up there on rpwondemand.com. And of course, Epic Encounter 6 will be archived there the second the show finishes streaming on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. So like I say, 100% free of charge, no catch whatsoever. All we ask is you spread the word, and if you like what you see, please donate. If you like what you see, please subscribe to rpwondemand.com. Please buy something on shoprevpro.com. We're not going to think any less of you if you don't, but honestly, all we want to do is continue to keep this thing alive. We want to continue to grow. We want to continue to create positivity around British wrestling and wrestling in general, and the sport of professional wrestling in general. Because to me, if lockdowns taught me one thing about the way professional wrestling is viewed by, you know, governments, etc., is that professional wrestling is looked down upon the same way it's looked down upon in the entertainment industry. You know, and we always used to say we're the bastard son of entertainment is the way we used to term it, you know, and we look at the camp shows we run. And wrestling is probably the only form of entertainment in terms of outside entertainment that holiday camps bring in, that they can put on in an afternoon slot and pack out a building. We're talking 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 people packed out to watch the wrestling. They won't do that for a random singer that's getting paid way more than the wrestling as an ensemble cast, you know. So for me, you know, wrestling is perhaps the most undervalued and underappreciated form of entertainment right now. And our British wrestlers are the best wrestlers in the world. I will go on record as saying that. They deserve to be seen. They deserve a platform. They deserve to be applauded. And this, and I genuinely believe that this effort that we're putting in to try and keep professional wrestling going, you know, it should be looked upon favorably. It should be applauded because we're doing everything we can against all odds. We're doing everything we can to keep this thing going, to keep this thing alive, to be undeterred, to keep moving forward with a positive energy. And, you know, we've made so many changes to everything we're doing, and we're going to continue to do it, and we're going to continue to produce the best professional wrestling. And I just hope that people get behind it and people can help show not just the rest of the wrestling world, you know, what we're doing and what we're capable of doing. We're doing this on no budget. Okay, these shows are they're obviously costing a fortune, right? And I hope that obviously there'll be that element of good faith in terms of, you know, what we're doing will be repaid, you know, later down the line. I hope that. I genuinely do. But you know, we are doing this. This is DIY professional wrestling, real DIY professional wrestling, right? And we are doing everything we can to make this work and make this happen. And all I'm saying is, imagine what we could do with some backing. Imagine what we could do with some sponsorship. Just imagine where we could be. Because from day one, I've always had in me this desire to take wrestling to the next level, this desire to look at what we've got and say, we can achieve more, we can be more, we can do more. And right now, all I'm trying to do is keep it alive, so we've got a fighting chance of doing just that. And by watching, by contributing, by sharing news of the shows, by helping us advertise, by telling your mates who are wrestling fans, by talking about the shows, telling us what you liked, telling us what you didn't like, you know, sharing our statuses on social media, supporting ShopRev Pro, supporting RPW On Demand, whatever it is you do, one fan at a time, we're making this thing stronger, we're making this thing bigger, and we're creating something that we can all be proud of in the future.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me again, Andy. And I am off to prepare for Gideon Gray.
Good luck to you, Steph. Good luck.